Before Paris and Nicole, before the Real Housewives, and before the Kardashians, there were 3 women who perfected the art of being famous, just for being famous. They came from war-torn Budapest with little more than beauty, charm, ambition, and lies, and turned themselves into a dynasty of diamonds, scandals, and broken hearts. Magda, Zsa Zsa, and Eva Gabor. 3 sisters who rose from a small jewelry shop in Hungary to the golden lights of Hollywood, chasing fame, fortune, and headlines. With 20 marriages between them, they married princes and tycoons, seduced movie stars and dictators, and built an empire out of gossip itself. But behind the champagne and mink stoles was a story of survival, of mothers and daughters remaking themselves through war, exile, and reinvention. They lived for the cameras, the glitz, and the glamour, but lost themselves in the illusion they created. Join us as we uncover the true story of the Gabor Sisters, a century-long fable of beauty, ambition, and the unbearable price of fame paid by those who pursued it relentlessly. These days, I found myself wanting to stay in more than go out. Since I take care of my mother, I'm always looking for new and engaging things we can do together. Something relaxing, creative, and meaningful. That's why I'm so grateful to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. Craftsy is an online community of like-minded makers where members can find endless inspiration, advance their skills, and discover new hobbies. With over 2,000 inspiring classes, Craftsy is your online home for all things creative. From knitting, sewing, and crocheting, to painting, cooking, baking, and even cake decorating. Every class is broken down into easy-to-follow lessons, led by friendly, award-winning instructors who share their wisdom through step-by-step demonstrations and downloadable resources you can use anytime. Members get unlimited access to thousands of classes, projects, and recipes, plus live streaming tutorials where expert instructors share tips, answer questions, and connect with the Craftsy community in real time. So if you've been craving a creative outlet or want to learn a new hobby, go to craftsy.com/storiesthroughtime to get your first full year of Craftsy Premium for just $1.49. This offer is valid for new members only. So join the Craftsy community and let's make something beautiful. The Gabor sisters often mythologized their lineage, claiming descent from Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan, though they were Jewish. Their paternal grandfather, Farkas Miklos Grun, Hungarianized his name to avoid the anti-Semitism that shadowed late 19th century Hungary. Their maternal grandmother, Franziska Reinherz Tillemann, born around 1865 to 1870, defied her bourgeois family by eloping with a poor student, Joseph Tillemann. To survive, they tutored before opening a lunch cafe in Budapest. Years of grueling 18-hour days led to the creation of the Diamond House, a shop selling imitation pearls with genuine gem clasps, a clever success that secured their family's rise in fortune and class. Franziska and Josef had 5 children: Jeanette, Dora, Sebastian, Rosalie, and Yanchi, who later became known as Jolie. Though Franziska was distant and authoritarian, her children adored her. Jolie inherited her mother's ambition and vanity, later charging her own daughters 2 cents to touch her beautiful complexion, teaching both the value of money and vanity. Little is known of Vilmos Gabor beyond his humble beginnings as a fruit seller turned speculative crop trader whose fortunes rose and fell with the harvest. Around 20 years older than Jolie, he wooed her with baskets of fruit and trinkets, including a velvet box containing a diamond and sapphire choker, which was really mostly rhinestones. They married in 1914 in a pragmatic union based on gain, not passion. Cynical about romance, Jolie agreed to Vilmos's offer. After 6 months, if she wasn't hilariously happy, she could keep the jewels and leave. With World War I's outbreak, Vilmos joined the Royal Hungarian Army while Jolie remained in Budapest, where she bore 3 daughters amid the chaos of Bela Kun's short-lived Soviet Republic. Magda, born June 11, 1915, Sari, later nicknamed Zsa Zsa, born February 6, 1917, and Eva, born February 11, 1919. Jolie meticulously directed their upbringings: ballet, fencing, tennis, skating, while dismissing academics. Her true curriculum was husband training. While Zsa Zsa excelled at riding, Eva excelled in tennis, and both refined their grace through ballet. The Gabor home was volatile. Jolie and Vilmos quarreled endlessly. Once, he even threatened his mother-in-law, Francisca's life. His jealousy was obsessive. He erupted if Jolie so much as glanced at another man. The daughters mocked the chaos. "Divorce today?" Magda joked, while Zsa Zsa pleaded, "Please get divorced so I can quit piano." Vilmos blamed Jolie for their rebellion, calling her crazy. She, in turn, admitted channeling her own thwarted ambitions into her daughters. Though Zsa Zsa later romanticized her past with tales of convent schooling, the sisters attended the French-run Notre Dame de Zion on Maria Utza, where they studied languages, history, and moral conduct. Constant parental fights drove away governesses, but one, Tsuki, their German nanny, remained steadfast and affectionate, providing rare stability in their turbulent home. Determined to refine her daughters, Jolie sent Magda and niece Ila to Madame Sibelia's finishing school near Lausanne, famed for its emphasis on languages, manners, and the art of attracting wealthy husbands. She reassured Vilmos that the school was virtuous: uniforms, hymns, and curfews. Though Sibelia herself, a cultured woman rumored to live with a female companion, specialized in transforming awkward tomboys into polished debutantes, a process both disciplined and alluring to her students. Jolie and her sister Jeanette accompanied the girls to Switzerland. Homesick among cosmopolitan classmates, Magda became disciplined and self-reliant, earning the nicknames the Duchess and the General. Enjoying her separation from Vilmos, Jolie wrote melancholic letters justifying her extended stay. A year later, Zsa Zsa joined and thrived. Her 2 years at the school evoked the strict, repressed atmosphere of Mädchen in uniform, or the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. Zsa Zsa remembered the routine of long black stockings, penances, and psalms before dinner, but still managed to push the limits of discipline. In her first letter home, she begged her mother for a garter belt and pleaded that the letter be burned before her father saw it. She also complained that the other students stereotyped her as a gypsy because she was Hungarian, and were surprised she knew how to use cutlery properly. Zsa Zsa, more instinctive than intellectual, mastered French and English despite a heavy accent, and became fluent in French and German. Her peculiar English later became part of her allure. Eva, fluent in Hungarian, German, French, and English, joked she could talk about nothing in 4 languages, while Zsa Zsa laughed she couldn't spell in any. She later added Turkish, Italian, and Spanish to her repertoire. By the early 1930s, all 3 sisters worked in the family jewelry shops, Zsa Zsa in her father's store at 6 Rákóczi út beside her grandmother's diamond house, deepening Vilmos's resentment of Francisca's success. During the Depression, he likely returned to fruit importing, reasoning that while people might pawn jewels, they would never stop buying food. At 15, Zsa Zsa came home from Switzerland, poised and ambitious. Jolie aimed to crown her as Miss Hungary, and both women later insisted she won. In reality, newsreels revealed Julia Gall as the true victor, with Zsa Zsa and another contestant serving merely as udvarholgi, ladies-in-waiting. The loss infuriated her, recalling earlier humiliations at Sibilia's and in her parents' shops, early sparks of the lifelong status hunger that would fuel her fame. Zsa Zsa's first brush with fame came in Vienna, where tenor Richard Tauber spotted her at Grinsing and summoned Jolie to meet the girl. Preparing his operetta Der singende Traum, he sought an ingenue and was captivated by her charm despite her lack of talent. She couldn't sing, danced stiffly, and acted poorly, yet her poise intrigued him. For 3 grueling weeks, she endured harsh lessons, teachers yelling, striking her with violin bows, forcing her to balance books for breath control. At last, a weary producer barked, If you can't do anything else, keep that pretty face to the audience." Relegated to the background, Zsa Zsa nonetheless discovered her taste for performance. At 18, Zsa Zsa became the first Gabor bride, eloping on May 17, 1935, with Burhan Belja, a 36-year-old Turkish diplomat. Magda followed in 1937, and Eva in 1939. Before marrying, Magda appeared in 2 Hungarian films, Tokaji Rhapsodia and My Lányok, but abandoned acting for propriety. She wed Polish doctor Jan Bachowski and moved to Warsaw, returning to Hungary before the German invasion while he escaped to England. Their marriage had already collapsed. Bachowski later joined the Polish Air Force under the RAF and was killed in a 1944 bombing raid at 42. Zsa Zsa glamorized her marriage to Burhan Belja, inflating his minor diplomatic title into press director, ambassador, or minister. In truth, as his son Murat Belja later clarified, he was a minor embassy official, maybe a political officer. Yet her exaggeration held a trace of truth. She spent nearly 6 years in Turkey, safeguarded by a diplomatic passport as Hitler's shadow spread over Europe. The match, both dramatic and practical, provided stability. By 1939, Belja's position had improved enough for him to lecture at London's Royal Institute of International Affairs on modern Turkey. The Times even, mistakenly, listed him as Director of Press, Turkish Foreign Ministry, giving him the prestige Zsa Zsa always implied. Belja's lecture drew H.G. Wells, who admired Ataturk and attended at Sir Percy Lorraine's suggestion. Impressed, Wells introduced the couple to London's elite, including Neville Chamberlain and Anthony Eden. Zsa Zsa's charm and beauty captivated reporters, earning her early press photos in the London papers, her first taste of celebrity. While Zsa Zsa socialized in London, Eva married Dr. Eric Valdemar Drimmer on June 3, 1939. In her memoir, Orchids and Salami, she claimed he proposed the night they met when she was 17, but she was closer to 20 and the story embellished. Their marriage soured quickly. The 1942 divorce cited his controlling temperament. "He treated me like a patient," she said, and his attempts to steer her career, though she admitted her own hunger for fame. After months in London awaiting U.S. visas, the couple sailed that August, just weeks before Germany invaded Poland, escaping the war's outbreak. They settled in Los Angeles, where Eva endured loneliness as mail from Budapest grew costly and later censored. Her isolation ended in June 1941 when Zsa Zsa arrived from Europe, fleeing both her husband and a collapsing continent. By late 1940, Zsa Zsa returned to Ankara, restless and disillusioned. The small capital felt stifling, and Burhan's wish for children clashed with Jolie's decree that her daughters must never sacrifice youth for motherhood. Enraged by Jolie's interference, Burhan accused her of ruining the marriage, becoming the first of many Gabor husbands to discover who truly ruled the family. From Ankara, Zsa Zsa learned Eva had secured a modest Paramount contract. The studio viewed her as another photogenic blonde with an accent, her hesitant English a novelty. Progress was slow but steady. Jolie sent $2,000 for Eva's new dental crowns, and soon Paramount featured her in a 5 Steps to Winter Beauty spread. Eva began posing for glossy ads, her first glimmer of fame. In February 1941, Zsa Zsa staged her escape from Turkey. Refusing to disembark in Ankara, she stayed aboard her train eastward toward freedom. Her route wound through the Balkans and Middle East, crossing the Turkish frontier on foot, waiting in Baghdad where a young sheikh proposed, then continuing through India. From Bombay, she boarded the SS President Grant on April 27, 1941, crossing the Pacific, Panama Canal, Caribbean, and Atlantic. On June 3rd, she arrived in New York with 21 suitcases, a handful of acquaintances, and the poise of a woman determined to be noticed. Upon landing, Zsa Zsa rebranded herself as an adventurous Turkish beauty. A photographer captured her chic arrival, and that evening an old acquaintance, a retired industrialist, took her to dinner at the 21 Club. The next morning's papers ran the headline, "Turkish Beauty Arrives." Days later, Eva flew in from Los Angeles, and their reunion, two glamorous sisters speaking Hungarian, was photographed as they boarded a plane west, heralding the birth of the Gabor dynasty in Hollywood. While Zsa Zsa crossed continents, Eva quietly built her career. Before her first credited role, she appeared in New York Town with Fred MacMurray and Mary Martin. Her official debut came with Forced Landing, 1941, a low-budget aviation drama she later dismissed, though it opened doors. At Paramount, she trained daily under Florence Enright, practicing diction and acting from 9 to 6 alongside classmates Susan Hayward and Jean Cagney. After 6 months, director Margaret Webster oversaw her second screen test and praised her progress. But the war soon intervened. When the U.S. entered World War II in December 1941, Germany and Hungary joined the Axis, cutting the sisters off from their family as the U.S. Embassy in Budapest closed. Before her contract ended, Eva appeared briefly in Star-Spangled Rhythm, 1942, with Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, re-emerging in 1945 as Countess Demidow in A Royal Scandal, opposite Tallulah Bankhead and Charles Coburn. Most of her scenes were cut after Ernst Lubitsch fell ill and Otto Preminger replaced him. Had Lubitsch stayed, her role might have expanded. The two were romantically involved, a relationship rumored since 1943. In Orchids and Salami, Eva described him as witty and urbane, the prototype of the older man the sisters adored. Their affair lasted until his death in 1947, later clouded by gossip that he died during sex with an unidentified woman. When Zsa Zsa reached Los Angeles in June 1941, she stayed 5 months with Eva and Drimmer before Eva left him that November. The sisters then shared a small bungalow, often even a bed, bickering constantly yet inseparable. Seeking citizenship, Eva married wealthy Angelino Charles Isaacs in September 1943, while continuing her affair with Lubitsch. Both women were largely unemployed, devoting themselves to rescuing relatives in Hungary, unaware of the horror closing in on them. Restless and anxious about her immigration status, Zsa Zsa sought both protection and prestige. Labeled an enemy alien, her Turkish passport offered only temporary security. Within 10 months, she found her solution. On April 10, 1942, she married hotel magnate Conrad Hilton, 30 years her senior. Hilton fit her pattern: older, powerful, devout. Yet his Catholic faith forbade remarriage, leaving him chained to her beauty, as he later wrote in his memoir, Be My Guest. Their romance began at Ciro's on the Sunset Strip in December 1941, when Zsa Zsa, attending with attorney Greg Botzer, learned Hilton was rich and single. Enchanted by her accent, he danced with her, but stumbled over her name, until she laughed. "Call me Georgia. I think I will marry you," she teased. "Is that what you think, Georgia? Well, why not? I dare you," he replied. The dare became destiny. Hilton later described her as not greedy, but generous, charming, and kind, sending flowers to his mother and winning over his sons. Yet his austerity clashed with her extravagance, his thrift against her theatrical indulgence, foreshadowing a volatile marriage that would cement her legend. At their Spanish-style mansion on Bellagio Road, Zsa Zsa felt trapped in Hilton's rigid world of business and faith. He enforced strict budgets and separate bedrooms, disapproving of her beauty rituals and vanity. Their intimacy faded soon after the wedding, replaced by nightly prayers and silence. Surrounded by wealth, but starved of affection, she found solace only in Ranger, Hilton's loyal German shepherd who shadowed her through the mansion's lonely halls. As Zsa Zsa's isolation deepened, catastrophe struck Hungary. After Admiral Miklos Horthy's failed bid for peace, Adolf Eichmann arrived in Budapest to direct mass deportations of Jews. The Gabors' once gilded world crumbled as relatives faced persecution. Until 1944, affluent Jewish families like the Gabors and Tillemans had survived under fragile privilege. The German occupation shattered it. Jolie's brother, Sebastian Tillemann, was conscripted into a forced labor brigade, surviving only through chance and the mercy of strangers. Amid the terror, Magda emerged as the family's hidden hero. Drawing on her late Polish husband's contacts, she joined the anti-Nazi underground as a courier and driver. Fluent in Polish, she worked with the Red Cross, ferrying supplies from the British Embassy to interned Polish soldiers, later smuggling civilian clothes to help them escape disguised as locals. She guided fugitives toward Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and British-held Egypt. When the British Embassy closed in December 1941, her network collapsed, but Magda continued her clandestine rescue work. A Jewish widow of a Polish RAF officer, she lived in constant peril, yet never sought recognition. Heroism did not suit the Gabor image. Magda's defiance drew Nazi suspicion. Witnesses saw her driving embassy vehicles and mingling in diplomatic circles. Fascists branded her a total Jew and placed her under surveillance. Her survival depended on Portugal's ambassador, Carlos Sampaio Garrido, who quietly shielded her, her parents, and hundreds of Jews from deportation. Meanwhile, Jolie, nearly 50, divorced Vilmos in 1940 after years of financial quarrels. Paradoxically, peace followed. They resumed dining, attending theater, and occasionally sharing a bed. In 1941, Magda became Garrido's secretary, and soon his lover, possibly his fiancé. As neutral Portugal assumed limited U.S. duties after America entered the war, her position provided ideal cover for her rescue work. Garrido, defying Salazar's dictatorship, issued protective papers and created safe houses for Jews. Between 1942 and 1944, Budapest's Jewish elite lived in uneasy calm. The extended Tillemann family gathered weekly, their dinners masking dread. At their final supper, Jolie trembled as she emptied every champagne glass, then fell silent. A week later, each guest stepped outside wearing a yellow star. Their safety was over. Germany invaded Hungary in March 1944, sealing the family's fate. Jolie later recalled a city where no one could be trusted. Vilmos's outspoken anti-Nazi views and Magda's underground work made them targets, but their Jewishness alone doomed them. Across the Atlantic, Zsa Zsa and Eva knew nothing certain. Magda's letters, once carried in Portuguese diplomatic pouches, stopped arriving. Zsa Zsa imagined Nazi patrols, burning streets, and her family in peril. Hilton tried to comfort her, but she grew withdrawn, neglecting her looks and clinging only to Ranger. Determined to act, Eva took command. With Hilton's backing, the sisters flew to Washington, D.C., intent on pleading even to President Roosevelt. They appealed to the Turkish and Portuguese embassies, but Portugal's first secretary, Dr. Vasco Guerin, explained, refugees could only enter if America guaranteed asylum. Impossible for enemy aliens. For 2 months in mid-1944, they haunted Capitol Hill, besieging senators, congressmen, and State Department officials. Hilton reminded Zsa Zsa her family, as Hungarians, lay beyond U.S. jurisdiction. Eva's husband, Charles Isaacs, briefly joined the mission, treating it casually, while Zsa Zsa, paralyzed by dread, prayed only for word that her family was alive. Then tragedy struck again. One night, a radio bulletin announced her Bel Air mansion was ablaze. The East Wing, along with her jewels, gowns, letters, and diaries, was lost. Ranger perished, trapped in her bedroom. Neighbor Ouida Rathbone tearfully called to say firefighters had arrived too late. That night, Zsa Zsa imagined Ranger's death as an omen, that her family in Budapest was enduring the same fate. At her breaking point, she received a call from the State Department. Secretary of State Cordell Hull, Roosevelt's confidant and future Nobel laureate, would see her. How the meeting was arranged remains uncertain, though biographer J. Randy Taraborelli credited Hilton's pull. Zsa Zsa remembered Hull's calm, paternal kindness, offering water, listening intently, and promising only to look into the matter, explaining that nationality and paperwork ruled everything. Moved by her anguish, he urged her to rest in New York. Eva returned to Hollywood, while Zsa Zsa joined Hilton at the Plaza Hotel, where he lay ill with the flu. Her attempts to nurse him, feeding him spicy food and cocktails, only worsened his condition. Restless, she wandered their suite overlooking Central Park, talking to imagined visions of her family. She begged Hilton to call the White House, sang Hungarian songs, wept, laughed, and declared she had always been a Catholic in my heart, insisting they should really marry at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Zsa Zsa's nervous collapse eased gradually. Hilton recovered first. She declared herself cured through shopping and fresh air, indulging at Saks, Bindle's, and Hattie Carnegie. But back in Los Angeles, the ruins of her burned mansion reignited her trauma. At 26, she looked years older. Hilton moved her into a suite at his townhouse hotel on Wilshire Boulevard to recuperate. Her beauty faded, her spirit fragile, and her family still missing in war-torn Europe. By autumn 1944, doctors prescribed barbiturates for sleep and amphetamines for energy. The drugs dulled her nerves, but not her fear. On December 26th, she read that Soviet forces had encircled Budapest. Haunted by visions of her parents' murder and Magda's capture, she endured sleepless nights in her mirrored suite. Newsreels confirmed her dread. Budapest in ruins, bridges destroyed, corpses frozen beneath Russian graffiti. Even after the Red Army's 1945 victory, peace eluded her. If her family lived, they were trapped under Stalin's regime. In spring 1945 came a miracle. Eva burst into Zsa Zsa's suite, clutching a telegram from Lisbon. "All well. We send you love, Mother, Father, and Magda." Their family had survived, but relief soon gave way to grief. Jolie's mother and brother had been executed. When reunited, Magda described the nightmare. Yellow stars, mass shootings at the Tattersall Riding Academy, mothers begging strangers to save their infants. Zsa Zsa sobbed, "Don't tell me any more. I've seen it all in my nightmares." In Lisbon, the Gabors lived on money wired monthly by Zsa Zsa and Eva, but existence was bleak. The sunlight mocked their despair. Magda, malnourished and losing her hair, Vilmos withdrawn, Jolie imperious, presiding like a refugee queen. They waited from April to December 1945 for U.S. visas. Jolie sailed first on December 1st aboard a slow freighter that took 30 days to cross. Magda followed a week later by plane, sending her poodle Canoe, who had once saved her from arrest, by ship. Vilmos's arrival is disputed. Jolie claimed February 1946. Zsa Zsa swore it was January in Philadelphia. As her family reached safety, Zsa Zsa collapsed again. In April 1945, she was admitted to West Hills Sanitarium in the Bronx, a private psychiatric hospital later used by William Faulkner for electroshock therapy. The New York Post reported her arrival. Draped in furs and diamonds, stepping from a limousine before vanishing behind locked doors. Her long-standing emotional instability, likely undiagnosed bipolar disorder dating back to her Swiss school years, was worsened by war and grief. In the 1940s, such illness was dismissed as hysteria, treated with shock instead of empathy. Her confinement began just as her family finally found safety. Prescribed barbiturates for anxiety, she returned to New York to recover. Her doctor advised taking pills whenever needed. Hilton and Eva approved, though Eva worried, knowing her sister's moods could turn volatile. At the Plaza Hotel, owned by Hilton, Zsa Zsa unraveled. Sleeping by day and drinking by night, she mixed Benzedrine with sedatives, careening between mania and despair. Her suite became notorious for chaotic parties, shopping binges, tantrums, and long-distance sobbing calls to Hollywood. One shish kebab party, complete with live braziers, filled the hotel with smoke and scandal. On April 12, 1945, she filed for divorce. Alarmed, Eva and family friend Bundy Solt flew to New York. With Hilton's consent, they enlisted a discreet doctor, Mr. Stein, posing as a Viennese producer. When sleepless Zsa Zsa agreed to an audition, Stein sedated her. Eva dressed her elegantly, pretending she was meeting a suitor, then delivered her to West Hills Sanitarium. Realizing the deception, Zsa Zsa panicked, fighting nurses, breaking a tooth, and ending up in a straitjacket. She later called the 7-week ordeal the worst time of my life, describing patients screaming in cages, details later softened by her ghostwriter. Her despair eased when an Irish nurse whispered that Hitler was dead on May 1, 1945. The nurse contacted a Hungarian friend who hired a lawyer to file a writ of habeas corpus. After a Bronx hearing, Zsa Zsa was released, frail but alive. During her confinement, she endured insulin shock therapy under Dr. Manfred Zockel, the treatment's inventor, suffering hypoglycemia and convulsions 3 times weekly for nearly 2 months. Humiliated yet defiant, she called herself an emotional exile. Borrowing from a Hungarian acquaintance, she rented a small Long Island apartment under her birth name, Eva Gabor, fragile, forgotten, and unrecognized by kindly neighbors. Everything changed when Jolie arrived from Lisbon on December 31, 1945. With her came reinvention, the calculated birth of the Gabor sisters as a brand, engineered by their mother. Reunited, the daughters fell into their childhood roles under Jolie's command, who preached, "Being Hungarian isn't enough, you must work." Zsa Zsa's scandalous divorce from Hilton returned her to headlines. The courtroom drama and gossip made her a tabloid fixture, though she and Hilton secretly continued their affair through 1946. Hilton financed Jolie's first jewelry boutique, Jolie Gabor, which opened near Broadway that spring, followed in 1948 by the Madison Avenue Jolie Gabor Pearl Salon, earning her the title Queen of Costume Jewelry. A 1948 Times Herald feature captured the rebirth. The 3 sisters in overalls, decorating shop windows, debuting as a collective brand of beauty, wit, and ambition. By 1949, Eva's career flourished. She appeared in Song of Surrender, directed by Mitchell Lyson, starred on Broadway in The Happy Time, and won acclaim in Accent on Youth. Ever strategic, Jolie folded Eva's success into the family enterprise, presenting her daughters as a trinity: Eva, often mistaken for Zsa Zsa, Magda, the poised diplomat, and Jolie, the mastermind. In the late 1940s, Eva filmed Love Island, released 1952, which she later disowned. But by 1951, she was ubiquitous, appearing in over 50 television programs, hosting The Eva Gabor Show and Famous Women of History, portraying Marie Antoinette, and performing nightly on stage. Her charm transformed her from immigrant to respected entertainer. Meanwhile, Zsa Zsa's divorce from Hilton finalized on September 17, 1946, but not before she became pregnant. On March 10, 1947, she gave birth to her only child, Constance Francesca Hilton. Zsa Zsa insisted Hilton was the father, though gossip named others. Francesca longed for his affection, which he withheld. Hilton's 1957 memoir, Be My Guest, omitted her entirely, though by 1960 he attended her Catholic confirmation, sharing lunch afterward with her and Zsa Zsa at the Beverly Hilton, a fleeting reconciliation immortalized in her memoir. Conrad Hilton remained outwardly cordial, yet ungenerous to his daughter, refusing financial help and insisting she succeed as his sons did. In Be My Guest, he cast himself as a devout Catholic, ruled by prayer, discipline, and his mother's authority. Joking, he shunned parties because, "My mother won't let me." That dependence explained his contradictions with Francesca. He kept her close, but withheld affection. Zsa Zsa shared his magnetism and self-focus, quipping that every woman should have at least 3 husbands, and staying friendly with most. But Francesca's paternity lingered in dispute. After Hilton's death, a 1947 codicil excluded the child born on or about March 10, 1947, to my former wife, Eva Gabor Hilton. A later revision left Francesca only $100,000, an insult that enraged Zsa Zsa and devastated her daughter. Refusing self-pity, Zsa Zsa, 7 months pregnant at Christmas 1946, told Jolie she would next marry actor George Sanders. They'd met at Sergei Simonenko's Manhattan party. Zsa Zsa demanded an introduction, then later hosted Sanders and another guest to meet her newborn. While one cooed over the baby, Sanders ignored both infant and dog, asking only for vodka, caviar, and warm milk. Their romance was swift and explosive. "We were both in love with George," she joked. "A volcano, pleasant between eruptions." She accused him of affairs, even with Lucille Ball. He quipped he hadn't spoken to her since she said yes. He credited his psychiatrist with curing him of her. She declared life a play, and herself its heroine. Unlike others, he listened when she spoke about West Hills, Francesca, and her nerves. They were happiest abroad and restless at home. They married April 1st, 1949, soon after his divorce from Susan Larson, whom Zsa Zsa called weak-minded. In April 1950, they traveled to San Francisco amid Sanders' All About Eve triumph as Addison DeWitt opposite Bette Davis, Celeste Holm, and newcomer Marilyn Monroe. On set, he feuded with Davis, while Zsa Zsa pressed Joseph Mankiewicz and Daryl Zanuck for a role until Mankiewicz banned her from the set. Her jealousy fixed on Monroe. Believing Marilyn wanted Sanders, she forbade off-script conversation. Love and ego turned public. At the 1951 Oscars, Sanders won Best Supporting Actor. Zsa Zsa, radiant but sidelined, sat alone, proud and bruised. On March 20th, 1952, she presented the Oscar for Best Costume Design to Edith Head for A Streetcar Named Desire. By then, she was a TV favorite on Bachelor's Haven, had made 2 films, signed 3 more, and awaited her defining role, Moulin Rouge. Her breakthrough came as Jane Avril in John Huston's Moulin Rouge. Huston opposed her casting, mocked her accent, and demanded endless retakes. Producer James Wolfe refused to replace her. Determined, she endured Huston's cruelty, which paradoxically refined her poise. Shot in Paris and London, the film recreated Toulouse-Lautrec's world in misted color and soft focus. In Schiaparelli gowns, Zsa Zsa moved like a living painting. Her staircase entrance and vapor-soft farewell became iconic. Despite Cold War protests, her anti-communist émigré image insulated her. She later joked at AFI, "He made me rich and famous, though he tortured me." Moulin Rouge made her legend. The theme followed her into every nightclub. Hollywood saw not an actress but a symbol, and Zsa Zsa preferred myth to mere credibility. While Zsa Zsa chased stardom, Eva, Magda, and Jolie rooted themselves in New York. Jolie presided over her Madison Avenue Pearl Salon. Magda ran operations while Jolie socialized and plotted another marriage. In 1947, she wed Peter Howard Chrisman, the Hamburger Heaven cashier, bluntly stating, "I want my citizenship, and secondly, I want you." Prodded by Zsa Zsa and pressured by Conrad Hilton to avoid scandal, Chrisman briefly prospered. He even inherited a house in Arizona, then fled Jolie's temper and drinking, divorcing and moving west. Unshaken, Jolie immediately hunted for her next husband. In 1948, lonely and alienated, Vilmos Gabor returned to Hungary. Zsa Zsa, without consulting her sisters, bought his ticket, gave him cash, and kept his walking cane by her bed thereafter. He remarried his longtime secretary, lured by a decree promising property restoration. Under communist rule, his business was seized. He and his wife were branded undesirables. In 1950, they were deported to a peasant house in Budapest, his German-sounding birth name, Grun, marking him suspect. For Zsa Zsa, sending him home was love and farewell. He no longer fit their glittering world. After the 1949 communist takeover, he was tracked behind the Iron Curtain. Letters were censored, calls monitored. The sisters rarely mentioned him. Asked in 1957, Eva offered only, "Yes, we hear from him. He is fine." Zsa Zsa would not see Hungary again until the late 1960s, when she finally secured a visa. Early 1950s Hollywood demanded chastened virtue from its sex symbols. Fallen icons sought penance. Zsa Zsa refused. Fresh off Moulin Rouge, she plunged into an affair with Dominican diplomat and notorious playboy Porfirio Rubirosa, the suave fixer for dictator Rafael Trujillo. Still married to Sanders, she ignored every PR warning, even declining a film with Errol Flynn to pursue passion over career. Rubirosa, Trujillo's emissary and serial husband, to Trujillo's daughter, actress Danielle Derieux, and heiress Doris Duke, moved among dictators, mobsters, and U.S. elites, dining with Sinatra, Giancana, and JFK, his itineraries aligning with political killings. He embodied tyranny's seductive mask, and Zsa Zsa met it head-on, without apology. By choosing Rubirosa, Zsa Zsa stepped into a world of charm and corruption. Proudly apolitical, she insisted she neither knew nor cared about politics. The affair consumed her and derailed her career. By 1958, she slid into B-movies like Country Music Holiday, and later into self-parody. In 1953, she ricocheted between Rubirosa's thrill and Sanders's stability. George called her Cocaline. With him she felt safe, with Rubirosa alive. By November, Sanders, humiliated by the public affair, filed for divorce. Weeks later, columns announced Rubirosa's engagement to Barbara Hutton. Furious, Zsa Zsa confronted him. When she ordered him out, he struck her. She hit back. Eva, Magda, Jolie, and publicist Russell Birdwell found her bruised. A doctor treated her, and by morning her black eye was front-page news. By 1954, her film prospects dimmed. Republic Pictures, weak scripts, and Scandal tagged her trash actress, later mocked in the Golden Turkey Awards. Rubirosa's hold lingered until 1956, when he married 19-year-old Odile Rodin. He phoned Zsa Zsa the night before, and she tearfully wished him well. As Zsa Zsa faded, Eva surged. Fresh off the Happy Time and TV success, she bought a 5-story Fifth Avenue townhouse, and per Jolie's advice, converted it into 10 rentals while keeping the grand flat. In 1956, Eva impulsively webbed Beverly Hills plastic surgeon Dr. John Williams, instructing the judge to omit "obey." 30 guests attended. Zsa Zsa was matron of honor. Reginald Gardner gave her away. A honeymoon at Jolie's Connecticut place soured. After moving to Beverly Hills, Eva left on a Blithe Spirit tour, abandoning John with the maid and dogs. Back home, she bristled at his smaller income and calls, demanding he pay her taxes as the man. When someone called him Dr. Gabor, she quipped, they should have lived together, not married. They divorced in March 1957. Later, Francesca Hilton alleged Eva was bisexual, possibly involved with Dietrich. Jolie tacitly confirmed, recalling Dietrich ejecting Williams. In 1950s Hollywood, such rumors were perilous, but tabloids like Confidential thrived on them. Eva's friendships with Dietrich, Tallulah Bankhead, and other flamboyant women fed gossip. The brief marriage muffled it. She worked relentlessly in TV and theater. Her last major film, Gigi, 1958, cast her as Leon Dexelmang, praised for sparkle even as the film stumbled. yet Hollywood still prized her beauty over craft. On April 1st, 1956, a week before Eva's wedding, Magda married for the 4th time to Long Island businessman Arthur Gallucci. Inseparable since a 1950 party, they split in 1955 after Arthur vanished on a dog walk, drank with an ex, and impulsively married her. When that collapsed, Magda theatrically whipped him, forgave him, and remarried him. She worked regional theater, did charity and TV. Unlike her sisters, she prioritized steadiness. They stayed devoted, if tempestuous, until his death in 1967. By the late 1950s, Zsa Zsa's choices and arrogance foreclosed serious roles. Instead of aging into a Joan Crawford track, she drifted into camp, next appearing in Queen of Outer Space, 1958, and she wasn't even the queen, cemented the kitsch persona. Her private life drew derision. An affair with Ramfis Trujillo, son of the Dominican dictator, tied her to a brutal regime. Confidential mocked her as a party favor. Late-night comics joked about foreign aid for Hollywood blondes, and Representative Wayne Hayes waved her lily photo in Congress, calling her the most expensive courtesan since Madame de Pompadour. Within 6 years, she fell from international glamour to punchline. Films like For the First Time, 1959, La Contessa Azzurra, 1960, and Pepe, 1961, passed unnoticed. In desperation, she even crashed a Bob Hope Bing Crosby road set to beg for a role. Hope joked about a nurse part, then dropped it. By the early 1960s, she subsisted on cameos, Make Room for Daddy, Mr. Ed, General Electric Theater, Burke's Law, Gilligan's Island. Reruns kept her visible while underscoring decline. After Monroe's 1962 death, the era of polished blonde fantasy closed. Zsa Zsa became her final invention, performing Zsa Zsa Gabor as a living caricature. In 1962, at 47, Magda suffered a massive stroke. Zsa Zsa, Eva, and Jolie rushed to her bedside as she endured 4 months of therapy, regaining partial strength through sheer will. Her fragile recovery collapsed in 1967 when husband Arthur Gallucci died of cancer, a blow that broke her. That same year, George Sanders, widowed after Benita Hume's death, returned to their lives. Frail from a stroke, he sought refuge in their Palm Springs circle. Recently single, Zsa Zsa invited him to move in, part affection, part convenience. When Sanders mentioned remarrying for security, Zsa Zsa suggested Magda. She's rich, lonely, and talks very little. Amused, Magda agreed. We all loved George, Zsa Zsa told Jolie. Let's keep him in the family. Sanders arrived bearing 40 red roses, vodka, and caviar, insisting on an immediate wedding. On December 4th, 1970, they married before a judge in Indio, followed by a reception at the Palm Springs Racquet Club, where Jolie toasted the return of my son-in-law. At first, Sanders was attentive, buying Magda a TV and fixing her Cadillac, but soon reverted to thrift, arguing her wealth made extravagance wasteful. The press mocked the mismatch, some mistaking Magda for their mother. Hollywood's new realism, Ally McGraw, Carrie Snodgrass, had replaced Gabor glamour. Within 6 weeks, the marriage was annulled. Bored by Palm Springs and Magda's quiet frailty, Sanders left. Magda, hardened by loss, accepted without protest. In failing health after another stroke, Sanders drifted across Europe, refusing Zsa Zsa's help. On April 25, 1972, in Castelldefels, Spain, he ended his life, leaving a note which read, "Dear world, I am leaving because I am bored. I have lived long enough. Good luck." His death devastated the Gabors and Francesca Hilton. That August, Magda married Hungarian-born broker Tibor Heltai, but the union collapsed within 10 months. They divorced in 1975. While her sisters mourned, Eva remained buoyant. Her fourth husband, Richard Brown, a 37-year-old textile executive and stockbroker, had met her in 1957 and proposed during a Las Vegas trip between Betty Grable's shows at the Flamingo. Red buttons gave her away. His wife was matron of honor. Zsa Zsa joked she was giving her away by proxy. Eva declared, "This time is for real," though few believed her. As Zsa Zsa slipped toward caricature, Eva earned respect. In A New Kind of Love, 1963, she stole seams from Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. In Youngblood Hawk, 1964, she played the publisher's elegant wife. She replaced Vivien Leigh in Tavarich on Broadway, 1963, and toured successfully. Reliable and warm, she was adored by colleagues, qualities her mercurial sister rarely shared. From 1965 to 1971, Eva found immortality as Lisa Douglas on Green Acres, the chic city wife lost on a farm. Created by Jay Summers and produced by Paul Henning, it inverted the Beverly Hillbillies and became a cult hit. Eva's warmth and comic timing made her beloved. Nearly 20 years later, she reprised the role in Return to Green Acres, 1990, still radiant at 71. Divorced from fifth husband Frank Jameson, she later maintained a platonic companionship with Merv Griffin, often serving as his public beard. Her discreet same-sex relationships stayed private. Though her charm endured, her career slowed after the 1980s. Cancellation of her Green Acres cookbook quietly ended her industrious prime. While Eva thrived on stability, Zsa Zsa transformed herself into performance art, the persona Zsa Gabor. It began May 9, 1958, on the Jack Paar Tonight Show, when Paar introduced her as the girl next door if you live next door to Tiffany's. With her Hungarian lilt, diamonds, and self-mocking wit, she captivated America. Through the 1960s and 70s, she became a fixture of talk shows and cabaret stages, spinning tales of Hilton, Sanders, and Rubirosa into folklore. In 1970, she published How to Catch a Man, How to Keep a Man, How to Get Rid of a Man, a playful manual that turned matrimony into art. In 1962, Zsa Zsa married kind businessman Herbert Huttner, whom she called an angel, though she admitted never loving him. After 3 years of mental kindness, she divorced, taking Eva to Mexico for what she dubbed their happy divorce. They parted lavishly. He gave her pearls. She gave him a used Rolls and a silver whistle to call me back if needed. Her fifth husband, Texas oil heir Joshua S. Cosden Jr., wed her in 1966. It lasted 6 months. Her sixth, Jack Ryan, 9 years younger, brilliant yet unstable, designer of Barbie and Ken, met her over noise complaints and proposed during a manic spell. Married in 1975, they coexisted amiably, his eccentricities balancing her need for appearances. They divorced in 1976, but she attended his 1991 funeral and befriended his widow. Her seventh husband, divorce attorney Michael O'Hara, followed soon after. His name in a blank page, she quipped. Tall and green-eyed, he claimed Irish roots but was Yugoslavian. They divorced after 5 years over his moodiness. He became the only ex-husband she never saw again. In April 1982, Zsa Zsa staged what she called her marriage number 8.5 aboard Frank Jameson's yacht near Puerto Vallarta. The supposed groom, Felipe, Duke of Alba, was actually a Mexican named Duke, nicknamed after John Wayne. Guests included Eva, Frank, John Huston, and Francesca Hilton. Chaos followed. The yacht never reached international waters. The captain lacked a license, and a storm sent guests clutching ropes. Worse, Zsa Zsa was still legally married to O'Hara. Her divorce finalized July 4th, not April 4th. Spain's King Juan Carlos publicly clarified that the real Duke of Alba was female. The impostor retaliated by revealing her true age, 65, not 54. She called him dull. He called her deceitful. The marriage was annulled the next day. At 70, Zsa Zsa staged one of her last great performances, Marriage to Frederick von Anhalt, a 43-year-old German opportunist whose royal title was fabricated. To tabloids, it was absurd. To Zsa Zsa, it fulfilled Jolie's command that her daughters marry a prince. Love meant little. Status meant everything. Jolie, however, saw through him instantly, canceling her wedding gift and calling him a frog who would stay a frog no matter how many kisses he got. Born Hans Georg Robert Lichtenberg in 1943, son of a policeman and housewife, Frederick purchased nobility in 1980 through a paid adoption by destitute Princess Marie Auguste von Anhalt. The title was ceremonial, but Zsa Zsa, who admitted she was addicted to bad men, saw him as another glittering illusion. Their 3-decade marriage devolved into grotesque theater as he seized her fortune and exploited her frailty for publicity. In 1989, her final scandal erupted in Beverly Hills. Pulled over by Officer Paul Kramer while driving her Rolls-Royce, Zsa Zsa exited the car and confronted him. Accounts differ. Some say she cursed him. She claimed he told her to fuck off, which she obeyed literally. When he grabbed her arm, she slapped him, sending his sunglasses flying and shouting, "I'll call Ronald and Nancy Reagan." Arrested for battery, resisting arrest, expired papers, and an open container, Frederique's silver flask, allegedly filled with Diet Pepsi, she faced 5 charges in the People v. Zsa Zsa Gabor. By September, the trial had become a circus. Arriving daily in couture, dripping jewels, flanked by Frederique and her glam squad, she likened the arrest to Gestapo terror and Soviet tanks, turning disgrace into theater, another role in her lifelong performance. Ignoring the gag order, Zsa Zsa held daily press conferences, mocking the police, judge, and prosecutors. Threatened with contempt, she feigned confusion and kept talking. Sentenced to 4 days in jail, but only serving 3, fined $12,937, ordered 120 hours of community service, and evaluated psychiatrically, she served her brief term at El Segundo City Jail in July 1990. The slap became her defining trademark, followed by a string of absurd cameos in film and television, from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Empty Nest to The Beverly Hillbillies, 1993, and a Very Brady sequel, 1996, where she transformed her scandal into pure satire. Through the 1990s, Eva remained radiant but lonely after losing Merv Griffin's companionship. Though platonic, their bond had steadied her. In 1995, tabloids exposed his new relationship with Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia, leaving Eva humiliated. That year, she attempted a comeback in Matchmaker, playing a mother for the first time. The show failed, and her refusal to accept aging roles left her adrift. Her last appearance came on Geraldo in June 1995, candidly recounting her failed marriages. A month later, heartbroken, she visited her former stepdaughter in Baja California. A fall fractured her hip, and infections set in. Airlifted to Cedars-Sinai on June 21st, she developed antibiotic-resistant pneumonia. Zsa Zsa, Magda, Francesca, and Suzanne Plachette kept vigil as she slipped into a coma. While Eva lay dying, Zsa Zsa underwent emergency surgery for a clogged artery. Frail but determined, she was wheeled into Eva's room as Francesca held her hands. Turning to manager Ray Katz, Zsa Zsa authorized doctors to let her sister go. Eva Gabor died in the early hours of July 4, 1995. Serene, graceful, and heartbreakingly human. Her ashes rest in Westwood Village Memorial Park beneath a rose-engraved stone. Our darling Eva, Eva Gabor, we love you. You are in our hearts forever. July 4th, 1995. By the mid-1990s, at over 100 years old, Jolie was frail and forgetful. After Eva's death, the family agreed she must never know. The only way to keep Mother alive is to keep Eva alive, Zsa Zsa insisted, assuring Magda and Francesca that Eva would break the news in heaven. When lucid, Jolie asked, "Where is Evika?" and was soothed with lies that she was filming or visiting Budapest. Jolie died of pneumonia on April 1, 1997, and was buried at Desert Memorial Park in a pink and ivory casket to her favorite song, Never on Sunday. Her headstone reads, "Our beloved mother and grandmother, Jolie Gabor de Sigeti. We love you forever. April 1st, 1997. 2 months later, Magda died of kidney failure at 81. Zsa Zsa kept vigil, sharing childhood memories until doctors confirmed there was no hope. She authorized the removal of life support, then collapsed in Francesca's arms, whispering, "It was the hardest thing I ever did." Magda was buried beside Jolie under a simple marker, "Our beloved Magda Gabor, June 6, 1997. With Eva and Magda gone, Zsa Zsa's world shrank to memory. Her final film, A Very Brady Sequel, 1996, and talk show spots on Rosie O'Donnell and Ruby Wax, 1997, revealed a woman dulled by grief. She penned a tender foreword for Christie's auction of Eva's jewels and appeared in Intimate Portrait, 1998, breaking down mid-interview before withdrawing from public life. Still bound to Frederick von Anhalt, she endured his absences despite Francesca's pleas to leave him. Fear of solitude kept her tethered, her final act one of isolation rather than spectacle. Zsa Zsa withdrew from Hollywood, doting on her dogs and cats, vowing she'd trade every diamond to save one animal. Francesca visited daily, escorting her to appointments as life shrank to routine and television. By the early 2000s, she re-emerged slightly, hosting small gatherings with Phyllis Diller, Quincy Jones, Larry and Sean King, Ruta Lee, and Alex Trebek. Inheritances from Eva and Magda secured comfort. Then, on November 27, 2002, her Camaro crashed on Sunset Boulevard. Crushed legs, a broken arm, head trauma. 2 months later, she returned home, permanently altered. Wheelchair-bound, white-haired, fragile. Frederick converted her suffering into tabloid theater, posing beside her unconscious body for Globe, begging for prayers. Doctors ordered her pets removed. Devastated, she surrendered them. Had Eva lived, she might have intervened. After 2002, Zsa Zsa's world narrowed to bed, caretaker, and television glow. Frederick soon cut Francesca off. A massive stroke in 2007 left Zsa Zsa nearly paralyzed, giving him full control. He exploited her decline with lurid stunts, claiming paternity of Anna Nicole Smith's baby, blaming Madoff for missing millions, and allegedly staging ambulance calls. On July 17, 2010, at 93, she fractured her hip attempting to sit in an unlocked wheelchair. Complications brought clots, open heart surgery, last rites. Yet she survived. Surreal updates followed. She was eating on her own and might soon take a Sunday drive to the ocean. From 2009 to 2012, Francesca spent hundreds of thousands seeking visitation and financial oversight. A judge imposed an independent conservatorship, but Frederic was named temporary conservator, limited to care expenses. Weekly visits found Zsa Zsa sedated and unresponsive. In January 2011, gangrene forced amputation of her right leg, news she did not grasp for 2 years. Elizabeth Taylor's death that March triggered panic over celebrity deaths in threes, prompting another hospitalization. Frederic rented the Bel Air mansion to HBO's Behind the Candelabra, repainting the pool in Liberace swirls. During a rare visit, Francesca was nearly expelled. On August 19, 2012, he staged a 26th wedding anniversary gala, boasting guests, Michael Douglas, Matt Damon, Debbie Reynolds, Steven Soderbergh. None attended. Upstairs, a semi-conscious Zsa Zsa knew nothing. Francesca was barred. The next day, Phyllis Diller died, symbolically closing her last link to Old Hollywood. On January 6, 2015, Francesca Hilton died alone of an apparent stroke. Her body lay unclaimed for days at the LA coroner, her mother too incapacitated to act. Frederic attempted to claim the remains and was denied. Stephen M. Hilton, son of Baron Hilton, assumed custody, tying off the Gabor Hilton line. Her memorial mass on January 21, 2015, at St. Ambrose in West Hollywood, was private, guarded to bar Frederic, who still posed for cameras and argued she should be buried beside her father in Texas. Instead, she was cremated and interred near Aunt Eva at Westwood Village Memorial Park. Mercifully, a bedridden Zsa Zsa never learned of her only child's death. By 2016, it was regularly quipped that Zsa Zsa might outlive Hollywood. But on December 18, 2016, 7 weeks shy of her 100th, she died at 99. Even the farewell was spectacle. Frederic circulated a fabricated guest list: Debbie Reynolds, Barbara Eden, Carol Channing, Larry King, Ruta Lee, George Hamilton. None had agreed to attend. Publicist Edward Lawsey and others sent cease and desists. Reynolds demanded removal, then died 2 days later. Friends organized a private memorial at Westwood Village Memorial Park, where Zsa Zsa wished to rest beside Eva. Frederic seized her urn, shouting, "These are my fucking ashes, and she was my fucking wife." Even in death, she remained captive to the tawdry theater of her last years. Her official mass followed on December 30th, 2016, at the Church of the Good Shepherd, Beverly Hills. A 1994 portrait stood before the altar. Frederic, in a brown barn jacket, more tradesman than widower, greeted mourners as paparazzi swarmed. Amazing Grace opened the service. Father Ed Benioff offered a gentle homily, recalling her quiet generosity, Salvation Army gifts, love of animals, discreet help to the homeless, and quoted, "Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Thus closed Zsa Zsa Gabor's century-long arc, glittering, scandalous, human, laid to rest in the same alloy of glamour and chaos that defined her from first entrance to final curtain. So, what did you think of the scandalous lives of the Gabor sisters? Were they glamorous survivors who turned reinvention into an art form? Or tragic figures who lost themselves chasing fame? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which sister fascinated you most? Magda, Zsa Zsa, or Eva? And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow and reach more history lovers like you. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, check out the link to today's sponsor, Craftsy, in the description below. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, keep seeking the stories that move your soul.